We are live on the air on Max Talks Movies. Once again, Joe Baldwin and Max and River both back this week after a 2-week hiatus. And now we're going to be talking about our top 10 favorite MCU heroes ranked. We have some honorable mentions as well as we get into this list. Be sure to leave some questions for our Q&A after we're done this ranking. And let's just get right into it. So, Joe, tell us your 3 honorable mentions.
All right. So my 3 honorable mentions, I guess I'll just do them one at a time. For one, I have Quicksilver, because as small of a character as he is, he's only in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Like I do enjoy the character of Quicksilver. I personally just love the power of super speed, and I think he was a good addition to that movie. Which I rewatched Age of Ultron recently, and I actually liked it a lot more than I thought than I remembered.
Yeah.
You know, he's obviously in my honorable mentions because he has one movie and then he dies.
Yep.
I think he had so much potential, and he was gone too soon.
Yeah.
In one of my other honorable mentions is Vision.
Yes.
Vision, again, the Age of Ultron, which is, there's a lot of good stuff in Age of Ultron. It's just like overall. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Vision, I think his power set is very interesting. The ability to phase, it truly is that, you know, we haven't seen that much of him, and especially with the end of Infinity War. Yeah, I don't have much more to say. I do love Paul Bettany as Vision. It's such a awesome character, and he brings life so well. My third honorable mention is Black Panther, who's one of my favorite Avengers before the MCU was started, and I really enjoyed Black Panther. I think I talked about it a little on our last MCU ranking.
Yeah.
It's a really good movie. It's a really different type of superhero movie that really shakes up how Marvel was doing things. And I feel like we talked about this before the broadcast started. The tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman was just awful.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring up Black Panther at least a little bit, because he is a great character and he was gone too soon.
Yep, I agree. My honorable mentions, I have Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok, who got a little light in Endgame, and it seems like she's going to be a huge factor in the next phase. I think she's fantastic. I'm a huge Tessa Thompson fan, and I thought she was fantastic in Ragnarok. And then I have Black Widow is an honorable mention. I'm really excited to see her own movie, because I don't think we've done enough background. Because honestly, she's not one of the the cooler superheroes. She doesn't have any special powers. But seeing this Black Widow movie could really elevate her being on this list. Could easily be in my top 10 after the movie. But as of now, she can't make my list. And as again, Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman was, in my opinion, one of the best working actors in Hollywood today. He brought to screen, Jackie Robinson, James Brown, and Thurgood Marshall, and he was just into Five Bloods earlier this year. So really tragic, because no one knew anything about this sickness that he was dealing with for the past 4 years, and it kind of hit everyone hard because it came out of nowhere. And he's such a good actor. And obviously, the big question mark too now is Black Panther 2 was announced. What do you do next with the Black Panther 2? I've been saying to give Shuri the next movie, but we'll see. I think we got to focus on just celebrating his life at this point. But it's sad. But we got to transition into our next one. Number 10. We're actually in our top 10 list here. Joe, what is your number 10 MCU hero?
My number 10. I really wish I could put this hero farther up my list, but my number 10 is the Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
She's a great character, but again, same thing with a lot of my honorable mentions. We just haven't seen her in a lot of stuff. Like she's always been in somebody else's movie. She's always like more of a supporting role, which is really a bummer because she's one of the only characters that we get who has like real superpowers, or at least superpowers that can be displayed in a creative way. Her sort of telekinesis it's such a cool visual effect, and it can be used so many different ways. So she's a very versatile hero. I loved her in Civil War, and I think her being one of the main the catalysts for that movie was very very important, because she's a super powered individual, and you have your heroes like Captain America, Iron Man. Captain America has slightly increased strength, but it's not super flashy. Iron Man has obviously built his suit. Again, I really loved this character, but just because we haven't seen her in much, like in her own thing, I'm really psyched for WandaVision, but she's got to be at my number 10. Yeah,
great actor too. Really good performance as well. My number 10. Now this could be controversial. Might not be on a lot of people's list, but he stole every scene in this movie, and that is Talos. Is my number 10. Now, again, a lot of people. I'm not the biggest fan of Captain Marvel, but he steals the whole movie for me. Ben Mendelsohn is easily one of my favorite actors, top 3 working in Hollywood, and his character is just hilarious. Like, you start out and he's supposed to be the big bad of the movie, and then you transition into him. Then when he turns good, he's hilarious. He's scared of Goose the cat because he's a flirkin, and that whole scene of the back and forth was hilarious. And then he's going to be bigger because he was basically, we don't know how long he's been Nick Fury for. Because in Spider-Man Far From Home, the end credit scene, we see that he actually has been Nick Fury that movie, but who knows how long he's been Nick Fury for. So he could be one of the most unique characters in the entire MCU, where he may have been the Nick Fury throughout the entire MCU. I mean, who really knows? Yes, I'm excited to see Captain Marvel 2, just to see him come back, hopefully, because he is, again, one of my favorite characters. I was laughing so hard in the theater in both Captain Marvel and that end credit scene in Far From Home. So it's a controversial pick. Not a lot of people talk about him, but I really love him a lot. So he's my number 10. You go. Yeah, go.
I'll agree with that. Talos was one of my favorite parts of that movie, and his reveal as Nick Fury in Spider-Man Far From Home really sealed up the plot holes of Nick Fury not knowing who Quentin Beck was, which was just a very nice touch. And it also opens up this whole new world. So I love that character. I didn't think of him for this list just because but that's a really interesting thing.
He is a hero.
He is a hero. All right, I'll roll into my number 9. My number 9 is Doctor Strange. After doing our top 15 Marvel movies, I rewatched Doctor Strange because I thought maybe I wasn't giving enough credit. I really enjoyed it. I hadn't remembered a lot about it, but Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange, such a good performance. I think a lot of people draw similarities to Iron Man in sort of like the progression of someone who's arrogant into someone who's a little bit more humble, but also still has that arrogance and humor. The reason he's a little further down my list is because I think I really enjoy his whole arc, and his power set is so elaborate. There are so many different ways that you could use his powers, but I think by the end of his first movie, he's gotten a little too powerful for me. Like I would love to see where they're taking Doctor Strange, because we've only seen him in 4 movies, and I thought maybe like him having the Time Stone at the end of the first movie and having complete mastery over everything. I didn't know where they were going to take the character, and if they do take the character in a new direction, I'm really excited for it. Yeah,
great character. Number 9 is Star-Lord, Peter Quill himself, played by Chris Pratt. This guy is hilarious. Obviously, it's Chris Pratt in this role. He's basically the leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I actually think my favorite Peter Quill has actually been in Infinity War. I think that's the most emotional people I've been for the character. Obviously, he's really good in the first one, and I'm not a huge fan of the second one. But Infinity War, you really get that romance really good between Gamora and Star-Lord. And then that whole scene of her being taken by Thanos is really heartbreaking for him. And then he screws the whole thing up once they go to Titan because his personal feelings get in the way. So it's a great character, and I think it fit in Endgame, him coming back. And I'm so excited to see more of him because now he'll be having to recoup a relationship with 2014 Gamora in the next movie. So I think it's so exciting. He's such a funny actor. And one of the big reasons why the first movie is such a huge hit is because he's so funny, very relatable as well, and he's got a great soundtrack as well. So that's why he's my number 9. Joe, go into your number 8 unless you want to keep talking about my number 9.
All right, my number 8 is a member of the Guardians of the Galaxies. The Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I have at number 8 Rocket and pretty much tied Rocket and Groot.
Yeah.
I love this duo, and I feel like putting them on as a duo is very fair because their rapport is so fantastic. And I think the progression of Groot, because Groot is a different character in every movie we see him in, but Rocket is the same character, and they still always sort of have the same dynamic. I think it truly is hilarious. Together, they're such a great team. I don't have them higher personally, just because I don't believe they're really superheroes. I mean, they're the Guardians of the Galaxy, but they are. I mean, Rocket is truly the person who's least interested in doing things for the greater good.
Yeah.
And Groot is just happy to be there, which is they're both such a strong presence. Even throughout, I think out of all of the Guardians, they're the ones who most concretely come into the universe we know, because when they're with Thor and then they join the Battle of Wakanda, they've just fit so naturally into the rest of the world while also being these crazy things, a talking raccoon and a sentient tree.
Yeah.
I love them in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and I've loved them in every appearance since. So they're my number 8.
Yeah. I like that you put them as a duo. I think that makes perfect sense as well. My number 8 is a character who wasn't in my top 10 until I watched Avengers Endgame, and that is Hawkeye. So he, for me, was a kind of a meh character, really interesting in Avengers. But again, you didn't really see him as Clint Barton because he was possessed by Loki for the majority of the movie. And then he just has this running joke with Quicksilver the whole second movie. So, and then he pops in Civil War, but not like, but Endgame, he becomes a badass superhero. And also, he deserved that opening scene with his family all going to dust. Like, you feel so bad for Clint because you know from Ultron that he has a family, and you know that it's definitely important to him because he hides it away from the Avengers. So I think, and then once he becomes Ronin, basically in the middle of the movie, that scene, one of my favorite action set pieces in Endgame was him in, I think it was Japan, maybe, when he was just killing all those people. It was so amazing to watch, and then him and Black Widow on this with the Soul Stone too. I'm happy he stayed alive. Now, a lot of people are like, she should have stayed alive, but I think he has a family, so I thought he definitely should have stayed alive. And I love Hawkeye from really just Endgame. The fact we're gonna get a Hawkeye show now with his daughter becoming the next one. Like, Jeremy Renner's a good actor. Let's keep him on a good roll right now, and I'm a big fan of that character. And your number 7, Joe.
My number 7 is one of your honorable mentions.
Okay.
I have Black Widow as my number 7.
Okay.
I'm sort of with you, which is, again, she's only in everybody else's movies, but she is getting her own movie, and I just kind of want to throw like some good energy at that movie. I'm expecting it to be really good. I want it to be a great movie. From the trailers, it looks like we're going to see so much more of her, and I'm really excited for that. But from what we have seen of her, I think her first appearance is in Iron Man 2, but I would say her great introduction scene is in the original Avengers, where she's revealing, like, in the middle of a mission, how she's tricking this I can't remember like a Russian mobster into giving her everything.
Yes,
and then proceeds to beat them all up. It's a great scene. She's also the one who's sort of responsible for, like, bringing everyone together. I think at times she does get a little too morally ambiguous. Sometimes it's really hard to define her character, but I also I loved her in Winter Soldier. I think she was the perfect person to go along with Cap throughout the entire movie. I think she's a great character, and I want to see more. And I personally was really sad that she was the one who sacrificed herself for the Soul Stone. I still love Hawkeye. I think the exploration of him and his reaction to the snap was a very interesting part of Endgame. But I really liked her character, and I wanted to see where it would go.
Yeah. And again, the only reason why, again, my main issue with her character is that they really tried to establish her and Hulk in multiple movies, and for me, they felt very flat. And that's one of the big reasons why she can't be on my list. But again, she's going to be my top 10, I know, when this movie comes out. I'm so pumped for that movie as well. My number 7 was already on your top 10, and I have him higher, and that is Doctor Strange. Now, Doctor Strange, like, I think the first movie is solid. It's not special. It's very much a Marvel formula movie. And he's very good. But Infinity War was easily the best Doctor Strange that we have gotten so far, in my opinion. The first movie, he's we've seen very similar characters go through very similar things to Stephen Strange. But then we go to Infinity War, and him and Tony Stark on screen together was perfection on screen. Downey and Cumberbatch have great chemistry. And then he becomes one of the most important characters in the movie because he has one of the Infinity Stones, and he knows how many times they're going to lose to Thanos and how many times that one win, and how they're going to get that win done. And everyone forgets about that little small part in the end game. Once he puts out that one, Iron Man is done, and that's how powerful of a character Doctor Strange is, that he has that power to do all those type of things, and that comes from Infinity War. The second movie is so intriguing, the Multiverse of Madness, with Sam Raimi coming back to direct a superhero movie. I'm pumped to see a horror type of movie in the Doctor Strange, but also just moving in Scarlet Witch and all those type of things. So he is a very intriguing character who I think can grow as well as we get through the next couple of phases. Your number 6.
My number 6 is also someone I loved in Captain America: Winter Soldier, and that is Falcon. I think Anthony Mackie. I'm surprised Falcon got this far up my list, but I think Anthony Mackie does such a great job of being someone who's totally capable of handling these crazy supernatural, like, government conspiracies, all this stuff. Playing someone who's capable, but is still capable of being a human in that scenario and pointing out what's weird. I think he's this good blend between being serious and being comedic. His fight with Ant-Man in Ant-Man is one of my favorite parts of that movie. I think it's great. And again, I'm very partial to characters with abilities that require creativity. And I think the wing pack, a lot of people would say that that's kind of a dumb power, but I think the way he uses it and the just the scenes they put together with him being able to fly, navigate with those wings, they just look so great. I am honestly surprised because he is a fairly minor character throughout, but I feel like he always has such a presence in the movies he's in, and that makes him feel like more. That being said, I am very much looking forward to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really love the Disney Plus shows. I'm really hyped for them. All right, Falcon.
Yeah. Yes. So I agree. I think also that opening scene of him running with Cap in the first act is just classic Captain America and Falcon, in my opinion, as well. Great character.
And even his on your left in Endgame.
Exactly. Yep.
Perfect call.
Hits you with goosebumps every time. My number 6 is Ant-Man, Scott Lang himself, Paul Rudd. I really love Ant-Man so much. The first movie, I think, is a really surprising movie because it's just totally different from what the MCU was doing at the time. So small scaled, wasn't trying to blow up the world or anything. And he was great. Paul Rudd, who would have thought the guy from Anchorman would lead into being a superhero? But he is a superhero and he does a very good job. I'm not the biggest fan of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think that was a step down for his character. Civil War was fun. Just to see him pop in with everyone was so different because, as I said, the first movie was so small scaled. He had an interaction with Falcon, as Joe just mentioned Falcon, and then they bring that back into Civil War, right? Falcon's the one who recruits him. And him blowing up was one of the most memorable parts of Civil War. But in my opinion, the best Ant-Man we've gotten was in Endgame. He stole every scene he was in Endgame. The taco joke with Hulk was hilarious. The joke of him going back, the test of going back in time. We see baby Scott Lang, grandpa Scott Lang, like all those different phases of his life were hilarious. But he gets, his romance with Hope is also very well done, in my opinion. And they have a really nice relationship. We are going to get Ant-Man 3 in 2 years. So hoping to keep seeing I want to see an amazing Ant-Man movie. I don't think we've gotten a top 10 movie yet of an Ant-Man movie in the franchise yet. So hopefully we get the third one is the best one so far. Before we go to our top 5, once again, guys, we have 7 people watching. Thank you guys so much. Please hit that like button. And also, guys, leave us questions. We're going to do a Q&A as long as you guys have us here for after we're done this list. So give us questions. There might be there's a lot of characters that we are leaving off this list. There are so many more than 10 heroes. So you got to let us know your other favorites as well in the chat. Joe, give us your number 5.
My number 5 is the God of Thunder himself, Thor.
Yeah. Nice.
I think the original Thor was one of the first Marvel movies I personally saw. And he is such a different character. Like, you have your more human characters, but him being like a god is just, it allows for all of these like small comic moments. His arrogance sometimes is very funny. I think Thor has better showings in a lot of other movies than he does his own, but like I said in our top 15, Thor Ragnarok, one of my favorites. I think Chris Hemsworth just brings such a sense of humor to the character while also taking it very seriously. You truly believe that this is what a god on Earth would act like. Someone who just, for real. I don't know. I really enjoy him in every movie he's in. He's probably one of the most powerful characters in the MCU, but that doesn't stop him from being engaging and hilarious. I don't have much more to say. I really enjoy this character. I think maybe he's a little more humorous most of the time, and when he's dramatic, it kind of falls flat. But I'm still excited for upcoming Thor projects. Love and Thunder is up on the horizon. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I agree. My number 5 is Captain America. Now, this might be low for some people. He is number 5. Now, nothing against him. I absolutely love Captain America to death. I think he has, in my opinion, the best backstory in the entire MCU in that first 2 acts of the first Captain America movie. Winter Soldier, every movie that he is in, my top 4 movies are all movies that he is in. So I love the character to death. Steve Rogers is a very relatable character, especially for me as well. So very relatable character. Great performance from Chris Evans, who already was a superhero when he was the Human Torch in the bad two Fantastic movies, but it's cool to see him be Captain America as well. But for me, now again, great character. Endgame, he's old now. He ends up with Peggy, which is obviously the best romance, in my opinion, in the entire MCU. I love Steve and Peggy's relationship from the first movie. Civil War, was I rooting for his character to win? No. But again, that movie was not supposed to, I mean, choosing sides was the kind of the point of that movie as well. And he cares a lot about his peers. He has amazing relationships with Bucky, with Falcon, with Black Widow, and he has an off and on relationship with Tony. So he has great minor relationship with characters that makes him just a great character as a whole. So it's sad that we won't be seeing him possibly again on screen, because it seems like Falcon for sure now will be the next Captain America with Bucky in Disney Plus show. But I loved having Chris Evans in the MCU. He's in the most MCU movies for a reason, and that's why he's my number 5. Joe, your number 4 is?
I don't think this should be much of a surprise for people who know my top Marvel movies. My number 4 is the MCU's Spider-Man. And I want to clarify that, because that is the only incarnation of the character that I really I fully support, because Tom Holland as Spider-Man it's a great casting choice. He pulls off being the high schooler, with great power comes great responsibility so well. But the MCU Spider-Man is just one of my favorite parts of the MCU, because I'm very partial to the smaller scale stories, because I think you have to have the smaller scale stories in order for the bigger stories to matter. You have to care about the people in this universe, and Spider-Man is he scales up really well, but he is a very, he's a neighborhood Spider-Man. And him being in high school, I mean, some people might criticize the fact that it's like, oh, he's getting all this help from Tony Stark, but I think that's the most realistic thing that you could think, because he's a high school kid, and most high schoolers wouldn't have access to the resources. Like, he does need this sort of mentorship and help, and he's obviously gonna make mistakes. And I think that provides so much more room for growth in the future. I cannot wait for the next Spider-Man movie. They left us on such a cliffhanger. Spider-Man is my number 4.
Yep, a great call there. And Spider-Man again, he's gonna be in a lot more team up movies as well. I mean, he was not just in his 2 movies; he was in both Infinity War and Endgame. So I love your pick there. My number 4 was already on your list. I just have him higher, and that is Thor. Is my number 4. I love Thor. Now, again, that I like Thor. I didn't really enjoy Thor in his first 2 movies, and really in Avengers 1. I think Avengers: Age of Ultron was kind of the best he was been at that point, and then Ragnarok happens, and he becomes a totally different character, and that was the best thing that ever happened to Thor, because he had so many different types of interpretations in 4 movies already. This movie settled on his dynamic. He became the funniest character possibly in the entire MCU, not just with the Ragnarok, the whole rabbit joke in Infinity War, the going for your head bit in, the big moment in Infinity War. Endgame, he's fat. And that was a huge risk by Feige and the people who do the MCU, because that could have gone so south. The character was on such a roll with Ragnarok, then Infinity War. And I loved it. I thought it worked perfectly. It didn't feel out of place. And it seems like Thor: Love and Thunder should be great. I also hope he's in Guardians 3, because we leave Endgame with him going off with the Guardians, leaving Valkyrie with Asgard. So the question is he going to be in both Guardians 3 in his own movie, or is he just going to be in Thor: Love and Thunder? I am nervous for that movie because it seems like Jane Foster is to become the next Thor, which is not that exciting for me. But Taika's directing it. Anything Taika touches, I'm going to watch. And he nailed this Thor character already. And the Russo brothers continued that in Infinity War and Endgame. So Thor is such a great character, one of the most improving characters in the entire MCU. Your number 3, Joe.
My number 3 sort of carries a similar bias as my number 4 does. My number 3 is Ant-Man.
Nice.
It's the smaller scale stories, and I think Ant-Man does this so well. I think you are right with Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is it's not as serious, but I think the humor is still there. Paul Rudd knocks it out of the park as Scott Lang, as someone who's kind of being thrust into a superhero light. He really is. He's like the audience's point of view. Like if the audience was a character, it would most likely be Paul Rudd. Him in Paul Rudd as Scott Lang. Him in Civil War is truly great. They just throw him in there and he works so well, even though he doesn't know who any of these other people are. He acts how so many other people don't act, which is like, wow, this is crazy. I'm meeting all of these people like I've seen on TV, these like real superheroes. He brings this sort of groundedness to any scene he's in. I find him hilarious. His role in Endgame was great as someone who they kind of forgot about, and then he's like, "Hey, I think I have the solution." I don't know. I really love watching Ant-Man movies, and I think his sense of humor is so great.
Dude, I love Paul Rudd. I can't wait for more of Ant-Man. He's going to be in a lot more of the MCU. My 3 is Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Now, for me, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. So I'm very critical of the character. I still think the best Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man 2002. I love those first 2 Sam Raimi films to death. I really struggle with the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I think they're totally awful, both of them. And then Spider-Verse is great, but I'm a huge fan of. I love Homecoming, and I love Far From Home. But for me, Peter and Tony have the best friendship, in my opinion, in the entire MCU. And Endgame hits that so hard because in Homecoming, Peter always goes for the hug, and Tony is not that into it. Tony seems like a kind of a grizzled father to Peter in Homecoming, but then once he loses him in Infinity War, you know how important Spider-Man is because it feels like every scene Tony's bringing up Peter. The first thing Tony says to Steve when he gets off of that ship in Endgame is, "I lost a kid." And then we go to his house for the first time, and the first thing we see is a picture of Tony and Peter. And then when Tony and Peter see each other, they hug. Like, it's so perfect. It's very emotional for me to even talk about because they have a very great relationship. And again, Tom Holland is perfect casting. He's a kid. He looks like he goes to high school. It looks like he mixes between a high schooler and an Avenger so well. Him and Zendaya have amazing chemistry, by the way, especially in Far From Home. And him and his villains have gone well for it. He had a very unique relationship with both Vulture and Mysterio, which helps those movies out so well. The fact that he was dating Vulture's daughter, the fact that he seems like a loner in the Avengers, and Mysterio seemed a very similar way. And Mysterio actually liked him, but he had to get rid of him. So as I said, the end credit scenes, the best 2 end credit scenes, in my opinion, in the entire MCU, just on shock and awe. Peter Parker's exposed in the MCU. How will he react to that? Hopefully we'll see that in the 3rd movie. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Joe, your number 2.
My number 2, probably the most controversial pick on my list. My number 2 is Iron Man.
Whoa!
No!
Whoa!
Here, I cannot say enough good things about the depiction of Iron Man throughout the entire MCU. Robert Downey Jr. crushes it. He is Tony Stark. There's never going to be a world where people are going to accept Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. is not Tony Stark, and like the whole universe is built on his back. It's so great. His sense of humor gels so well with everyone else he meets. His snappy one-liners, his nicknames, everything. It serves to bring the world closer together. And I feel like I have to, at this point, even though he's my number 2, I feel like I have to say why he's not my number 1, because I think a lot of people have him at number 1, which is he's a very specific type of superhero, and that's one that a lot of people can get behind. But he's very, I don't know how to say this now that I'm here.
Watch out.
I think I don't think I can really make my argument without spoiling my number 1. So I'm trying really hard to figure it out. I'll just say more good things about Iron Man. His whole storyline, his arc is great. He's always growing, and his death in Endgame is heartbreaking. And I feel like I will explain more about why he's not my number 1 when I get to my number 1. But I am curious to hear what your number 2 is.
My number 2, again, this is going to shock a lot of people. If you know me well, you know this character is easily one of my favorite characters, if not one of them. And that is Rocket, is my number 2. Rocket Raccoon from Guardians. Okay, so voiced by Bradley Cooper. He is, my opinion, by far the best part of Guardians 1, Guardians 2, a lot of Infinity War and Endgame. And the fact that he doesn't die in Infinity War makes him so great in Endgame, because him and Thor have a great relationship in Endgame. The way that they're going after the stone, like, it's hilarious. He slaps him around. The rabbit joke that I just talked about with Thor. But Rocket is I've never laughed harder in an MCU movie than Rocket. And Rocket is so funny. He's such a jerk, a jerk in the first movie. He takes people's legs. He steals from people. He's very rude for most of that movie. But then he turns out to be a nice person in 1 and 2. The relationship between him and Quill, too, on who's the actual captain of the ship in the first 2 was so hilarious. And in Infinity War, you feel his loss in Groot. As you said, Groot and him are possibly a combo. I completely prefer Rocket over Groot. But I think Rocket is such a great character. The fact his machine guns, his shooting is insane. The fact when him and Bucky shoot together in Infinity War is one of my most underrated shots in that movie. And he's like, can I have your arm? And that whole joke was so funny. So I absolutely love Rocket. And he fits perfectly in the MCU. So now I think we're at the point of our number 1. Squid Rocket says it's Korg for Joe. The question is it? I think we both have already said each other's number 1s, in my opinion.
I believe that as well.
So Joe will kick us off with your number 1 is.
My number 1 is Captain America. I believe that Captain America is just the quintessential superhero. I think I'm so lost here. I can't think of good things about Chris Evans' performance as Captain America. You would think that a character like Captain America would be boring. Like, he would be the goody two shoes soldier, but I really find him so compelling. And I think now that I'm talking about my number 1, my number 1, it's partially just because I don't always like characters with arrogance, and I think Tony Stark is so much of a character who's built upon his arrogance, and even though it works so well, just my personal bias, I like Captain America more. I think he is the team leader. He's the one who brings all this hope. And again, you would think that this would kind of be a more boring character, but Chris Evans brings it home. It's and again, his power set is a little bit more a little bit more toned down, but that totally works. It makes you feel like he's working for everything that he's got. His origin story is very strong. He got his powers because of just how much responsibility he wanted to take, how much good he wanted to put into the world. I just really enjoyed that. And I think along with Iron Man, his arc throughout the MCU is fantastic. His ending in Endgame it's great. I mean, it's bittersweet, but it's the happiest ending they could have given him, but you're also so sad that he didn't get it. I love Captain America, and now I believe Max is going to tell me why I should not have put my number 2 at number 2.
I don't care. I think number 2 is perfect. I don't think he needs to be number 1, but for me, he is number 1, and that is Iron Man. So Tony Stark is the MCU for me. The way I really got into the MCU was because of Iron Man 1. And I actually think Tony Stark has been the best in Civil War. He has the most interesting story in Civil War. The fact that one thing in the elevator where he meets the woman and she's like, "You dropped a building on my son." And that was kind of the first time in a superhero movie where you're like, wow, the superheroes who blow up stuff actually have like stuff to figure out now. Like, what do you call it? Like after whatever. I forgot, what am I saying? But like consequences. Yeah. After, Sokovia was a pretty big deal and it blew up a lot of stuff. And normally in superhero movies, you kind of move on because it's so ridiculous. But in that movie, it hits Tony really hard that while he was kicking ass and stuff, he killed innocent people. And that's really crucial. And then you find out that Steve and Bucky knew that Bucky killed his parents. And that is so heartbreaking in the war because I feel for Tony because Tony believes that he's very close with Steve. And it seems like, well, I didn't tell you, that was a huge mistake by Steve. And I think Captain America knows that, especially in Endgame, because that relationship becomes tainted throughout the rest of the MCU. They don't even see each other in Infinity War. And in Endgame, they're very on and off. Now, they are the best two in Endgame, the relationship. I think it's so great in Endgame. And also Tony seeing his dad and that whole sequence in Endgame was also really heartbreaking as well. And then his relationship with Pepper is great. His relationship with our good friend Ty Simpkins was really great in Iron Man 3. And his death really hit me hard the most in the MCU. Because once, as I said, Dr. put up that one, I knew he was done. And that was sad because, again, Peter comes over and Peter has the longest sequence with him when he's dead. And that really hit me hard because, again, I love their relationship. I think that's the best relationship in the MCU. And Tony's such a great character. It's sad we won't see either Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. And come back to the MCU. But I think they're both easily the greatest superheroes possibly we've ever seen before. So, and Rusty Spork goes with my number one is Harley Keener. Well, Harley didn't make our list, so we won't tell Ty that. We have
a characters list.
We should do it. We could do a supporting characters list. We have a lot. Here we go. We already have a question here. Squid Rocket says, "What is your favorite non-MCU Marvel movie?" So that is a really good question. There are a lot to think about here. Joe, do you have one off the top of your head here?
I wasn't a huge fan of Marvel outside of the MCU, but thinking about it, I would have to say, I think it's X-Men First Class. I really enjoy X-Men First Class. That was one of my favorite X-Men movies. I think that was my favorite X-Men movie. And now that I'm saying that, I'm remembering another one, which is a non-MCU Marvel movie I love, which is the first Deadpool.
Yeah, and I would love to do an X-Men list with you too, dude, because I think X-Men's a great list to do. X-Men is easily the best other big property. Spider-Man 2002 is still my favorite. Spider-Verse is also fantastic stuff as well. Logan is my favorite X-Men movie. Deadpool 1, First Class, even Days of Future Past and X2, like those are all 5 amazing movies in the X-Men universe. I'm not a huge fan. No, not Fantastic Four. None of those. Those were tough to watch, especially the most one.
It's very important to point out that Squid Rocket is literally just trying to get a rise out of us.
Yes.
Right over there.
I'm just saying controversial thoughts.
Yes.
All.
Yeah. He likes to stir the pot.
Joe, do you like Captain America better than the DC characters?
It depends on what version of the DC characters you're talking about, Mick.
True. Like, basically, the question is he your favorite superhero of all time?
Oh,
Captain
no.
America.
No,
Okay.
we're talking about the MCU. Captain America, I don't think I've read really any Captain America comics. I read the original Civil War comics, and honestly, the movie's a lot better than the Civil War comics are. There's so many DC characters, which, I mean, we're not supposed to be talking about because this is a Marvel list, but a lot of the DC characters are my childhood, so I have a huge bias there. But Captain America is a fantastic movie character.
Again, there's a lot of non-Marvel movies. Daredevil as well. Not really a huge fan of Elektra as well.
I've seen those.
Yeah, those are not very good movies. Or Howard the Duck as well. That counts as a Marvel movie as well. So some of them are rough. We are at 45 minutes. We're going to give you guys a couple more minutes to put in some questions for us. We are done our MCU Heroes rankings. So tell us some other characters. Should you have any characters as well? Like, I think some other characters that we didn't talk about as well on this list. Here we go. Is there a DC equivalent to Cap? Superman would probably be the most.
I would say Superman. I think that's pretty close. I mean, it really is like a symbol of hope, but exactly. They're significant in such different ways that it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah. And again, Captain America was frozen for 100 years. I mean, those guys are very different, but they're both very good. They're both the most good out of all the superheroes in each of those two franchises. We did do DCU rankings already. So if you guys are joining us for the first time, already on my YouTube channel, Joe and I did a DCEU ranking, right?
Actually, that was you.
Me and Ty did that. Sorry, me and Ty did a DCEU ranking. And we can do more. We can do DCU villains. We haven't done that yet on this channel. There's a lot of villains in the DCEU that I would love to talk about with Joe as well. So there's so much more rankings we can do. Also, let us know what rankings. We did Pixar. We can do Pixar Heroes. We can do all these types of DreamWorks Heroes. We can do all these types of stuff for you guys. We've already done MCU villains on this channel and MCU movies on the channel. We could do side characters, Joe, as well, because there's so many MCU characters that I think we both absolutely love that we couldn't fit 10 in for heroes. Thoughts? That is true. Loki does kind of count as a hero on this list, but I always see Loki more as a villain than a hero because he was really a big villain in Avengers, and he was kind of a jerk in Ragnarok until the last couple scenes. And he was still a jerk because he gave him up to Thanos. So he was always kind of going back and forth.
Loki's arc is not to become a superhero. It's to become closer with Thor and that familial relationship. I don't think there was ever going to be a version of Tom Hiddleston's Loki that was going to be like, oh, I'm here to help. He's there because, like, I think the most interesting part about that is his dynamic with Thor, and I think that the arc, the way it concluded in Ragnarok, was really good. I would not call him helping Thor in Ragnarok being a superhero.
Yeah, I agree. So I'll give you guys one more minute to put in some questions, and then we're going to call it a day here. Once again, if you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications. I've done multiple reviews. Today, I reviewed the new Netflix movie, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And yesterday, I have the other new Netflix movie, Love Guaranteed. So please check those all out on my YouTube channel. And tomorrow, because HBO Max released Lovecraft Country early, I'll be reviewing that tomorrow. I'm watching it tonight, so episode 4 is tonight, so I'll be reviewing that tomorrow. Any last words, Joe, before we head off?
I do think there was one question earlier in the chat that I saw while we were talking, but I'm not sure.
Let's see. Oh, it says, okay.
Yep, okay. That was the one I thought. So my grandmother thinks the effects in Doctor Strange are really great, but she didn't like it, and she's and she's a hero because she brought me and my brother to go see it. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
That is the only Marvel movie that my grandma knows, and she uses it to guilt trip us all the time.
The Rusty Spark says, Joe, who do you think is my favorite MCU character? This is your mom.
My mom's favorite MCU character is Thor.
Thor.
Yes.
Thor. Is that correct? I'm gonna wait for a response here before we close out. Great way to end up. This is actually your mom, Joe?
Yeah. My whole family's on the Rusty Spork account.
Oh, okay. So that is a great way to end the show. The Rusty Spark tuning in to this channel. Once again, if you're new to the channel, like this video, subscribe, do all those fun things. And there we go. Rusty Spark says yes. Hey, Joe's mom. So we will be back with you very soon. Joe and I are both currently in college at the moment. So Joe's actually out of college. I'm online for the first semester. So we're going to talk about plans for the upcoming weeks because we're both going to be super busy with school. So stay tuned to my Instagram and Twitter, which you can find in the description down below, for updates on our next live stream. Normally it is when it's on, it's every Saturday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific time. Joe now is on New York, so that's 2 to 3 Eastern time. Thanks for joining us live on air for MCU Heroes ranking. That was Joe Baldwin. I am Max Sinneberg. We'll see you guys.